Hey, what's up? I am Tori BL. Welcome to day one of the process of sanctification fast. Today's topic focus will be self-discovery. And so I will be using a process that the Lord has taken me through when I decided to quit smoking cigarettes. And before I go further, let's explain what is sanctification. So sanctification is the lifelong process of becoming more like Christ, right? Offering transformation, renewal, separation from sin, and growth through the Holy Spirit. Now, the law of the Spirit represents covenant relationship with God, the freedom from bondage. And the only way to obtain this freedom from bondage is living a life that reflects the character of Christ, right? And so the law of sin and death can be found in Romans 7. The law of the Spirit is going to be found in Romans chapter 8. So sin equals death. But sin is not physical death. Sin is spiritual death, which is separation from God. You know, just like Adam and Eve, like surely you won't die. Yeah, they didn't physically die, but they died spiritually. So being bound can appear as addiction, fear, lust, anger, shame, and unforgiveness. I had found that whenever I wanted to quit smoking, I had to quit drinking as well. And in the midst of me discovering that, I found myself beating myself up at times verbally. I was feeling like Paul in Romans chapter 7 verse 15. When he said, "For I do not do the good I want to do." Like I found myself kind of being like, dang, like why do I keep, I set the intentions to stop smoking cigarettes, but I kept finding myself with one in my hand. And so before I was able to be free, God taught me about myself. I was learning my triggers. I was learning my habits. I was learning how my environment was affecting my habits and my triggers and my thoughts, and my emotional responses. And so it was the awareness that became the change agent for me. And now, mind you, the things that I had been doing were the same that I had been doing for so long already. It's just that once I had set intentions to, okay, I want to live my life right. I want to live my life holy. I want to stop smoking. I want to stop, indulging in these kind of behaviors and argumentative situations. It was like once I finally made the conscious decision to try to release these things, I started learning like, okay, it's when people say this that I act like that. Oh, it's when I'm in this type of environment that I feel like this. Self-discovery. So let's start with the conviction story. The conviction on the train story. So one day, this is when I was living in Boston, I was taking the subway train, I want to say downtown. I either had I don't think it was a job interview, but I think I had signed up for one of those work search programs. I think because I was getting government assistance and I wasn't working at the time, they require you to do a work search program. And so I remember I used to smoke marijuana and cigarettes. And I think I had smoked marijuana before I left my house. And eventually, I think I don't know if I smoked the cigarette as I was on my way to the train, but either way, I remember getting on this train, and this train was so packed. It was packed, almost filled to the brim, where so much so to the point where when we would go under the tunnels, I would feel almost like claustrophobic, if I could say it like that. I'll start feeling real uncomfortable, especially if the trains would stop and they would stop for longer than 10 minutes. Oh my gosh, I felt like we wasn't going to get off. But anyway, I said all this because I did the same thing. The same thing I do any other day is the same thing that I did this particular day. But for some reason, this particular day was different. And I don't want to just say it for some reason. I know that this was the process I know now that this is the process that the Lord was taking me through. Anyway, so I was on the train and I was standing there, and those that are amongst me, or pretty much in close proximity to me, everyone's dressed professional. It's early in the morning. It's anywhere between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. And these people they're up, they're dressed, they're alert. I mean, they got their coffee cups, they got on business suits and ties and button-ups and blazers, and everyone's looking professional and clean. And I'm smelling like marijuana. I'm like, I don't know, there wasn't another who was like me, like my kind. And I remember it made me feel uncomfortable because I also was a bit buzzed. And so trying to perk myself up so that I don't look buzzed. Yeah, it made me do a lot of thinking. I was like, man, the way I felt being around everyone else who was looking professional and well put together, I felt out of place. And so I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't ever want to be outside like that ever again. Like, I don't want to be amongst a general population of people that look business oriented. And I think too, the reason why I was near these people, around these people, was because I was on the subway, and one of the stops that was coming up was in the area of what they call the financial district. It's where a lot of business people that work in those big high-rise buildings downtown, that's where they go. And because of the cost of parking and traveling and all of that, taking the subway trains is very common. And so I just happened that day to be amongst the majority of them, and it was the first time where my little buzz or my little high that I thought I was getting, trying to knock off the chill or get my little cooling in before I went to where I was going, I felt uncomfortable. And so I said all that to say, because the conviction that I felt that day, it started making me create boundaries with my habits, right? So I had finally made the decision, okay, anytime I'm going anywhere important, I'm not smoking. Like, I will only smoke whenever I'm at home and I have nothing to do. If I need to go out to run errands, if I need to go out to pay a bill, if I need to go out to do something work related, I was like, I'm not going into certain environments smelling like weed and looking like a low life, looking like I don't have nothing serious going on in my life. Like, I have no care. Like, I couldn't do it anymore. And then even too, because even though I was going to church and not new to church, but being more consistent and going on my own and all the things, sometimes I would try to smoke a cigarette like hours before so that by the time I go to church, it doesn't sit on my clothes. But one thing about smoke is it don't matter how long ago you smoked. especially cigarettes, it still is, the smell is still in, it's in your clothes, it's in your hair and all the things. And so I just started being more conscious of it. And it's not that I was never conscious of it, but I started being more intentional and being more deliberate. Okay, the only time I'm going to smoke now is when I'm at the comfort of my home. If I'm not going anywhere. If I have something to do, I'm going to have to wait until after I've done all my things I got to do, and then I'll smoke, right? So here's another thing I learned as well when it came to smoking and trying to ditch the habit, right? I realized the lie that I was telling myself. Like, our words have power. I mean, that's kind of what Notes of Wisdom is all about, right? Because it's one of those things that I've learned that has been very valuable to my life. And I say this because, I mean, I even hung around other people who smoke, and even their own affirmations and how they felt about smoking became my own. Like, you know, they would say things, you know, girl, I tried to quit. I can't quit, girl. I need this because I be stressing life and this and that. And I can't quit. You know, all the things that we tell ourselves to okay what we're doing. A lot of people call it excuses, like, oh, you just making up excuses or whatever because you don't want to quit. But what it really is coming into agreement with the spirit that don't want you to quit, right? And those are called strongholds. Strongholds, right? It's the thing that has you bound. And what has you bound is what you tell yourself about that thing. If you say, I can't quit, you're not going to be able to quit. Because it's what you keep telling yourself. And then everything you do to try to prove yourself wrong against what you say. You're going to get the results of what you said, right? So what I did was I stopped feeding myself the lie to grant me permission to keep up the habit. I started becoming more honest with myself first. And I had acknowledged the fact that, okay, I like smoking, but I don't like the way my breath smells after. Or I don't like the way my clothes smell for hours on end after. And so I had to, just be brutally honest with myself. You know, there were times where when I was smoking, I would have a cold, my throat would be hurting, and it would be 20 degrees outside. And because of my cravings or because of this addiction, like, I would smoke through it all, right? And reinforcing that, oh, everything's so stressful, I can't quit, I just have to smoke because I just have to smoke. Like, man, it's really all about your choices have everything to do with your thoughts and what you choose to believe, right? The more I started reading scripture and, going to church and being in that kind of environment and being around these kind of people, I had to start just reshaping my thoughts through the faith that I was building, right? And I started admitting, like, okay, I want to be free from this. Like, I want to be healed. I want to be able to quit. I want to be able, you know what I mean? Like, there's a verse that says, I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me. One of the things that my deliverance from smoking has taught me is that although I've been able to quit, and I've quit more than once, each time I quit, it wasn't by my own doing. it was through the Lord. It was through reading his word and understanding more about God and his word and how he feels and what he says, and speaking those things over my life. Right? And so, let me just move forward. And I pretty much just said this, but for the next slide, what God was teaching me was that freedom isn't proven by avoiding temptation. Freedom is revealed when temptation comes and you still choose obedience. Now, let me fast forward. So, at some point during my journey of trying to quit, I eventually managed to quit, right? Or to stop smoking. And like I said, I was learning along the way. I was learning that whenever I drink, whether it was liquor or wine, that I would have these strong cravings for smoking, and I would give in to those cravings. And so I noticed that in order for me to slow down the cravings or smoking, I had to slow down on the drinking. So eventually I managed to quit. I was so excited. I was really excited. I was like, oh, I did it. I quit. I was so excited about it. When I quit for a total of maybe 7 months, 8 months. Now, let me also include, too, that what was helping me quit, fasting. Fasting became, it became the, I don't want to call it superpower, but it became the superpower or the dynamic duo for me to be able to quit. And so I eventually, like I said, I ended up quitting for like 8 months. But what ended up happening, so one of the things that I realized that helped me quit was my devotional and my church attendance and all of the things together along with fasting. So my church every couple of months or something would do like a corporate fast. And so this is where I was getting my training in fasting. I was already familiar with fasting because I grew up in a church environment when I was younger. And so I already knew that this was something that church does. And it was already something that I was somewhat familiar with. But like I said, when I set my intentions to be more deliberate or intentional, it was just a different setup. It was a different type of focus for me. So I ended up doing a couple fasts. Like, I think at the church we had a 3-day water fast. Whenever you're fasting, you are to exclude listening to secular music. You are to exclude watching drama-filled and chaotic television shows. You are to not be intimate during that time. And any recreational drug use, I don't even know if I want to call it that, but anyway, any of those things, you are not supposed to indulge in during the fasting time. And so I remember like the first couple of times being like, I think like the first fast, I was able to make it the first day, a whole 24 hours. But I learned a lot. I learned that, as I was trying to shed these things, I learned how my body responds when I wasn't feeding my body those things. Like I was, learning how, my temperament would change or, if I was or wasn't or whatever. And so I learned a lot. And so because of the first couple of fasts. Now, let me also include, there's a scripture that says that these kind only come out by fasting and prayer, or by prayer and fasting. And so it was then where I realized, like, oh, so the fasting is the reason why some of the strongholds have became weaker. And this is the reason why I was able to quit smoking over time, right? And so, although I don't know how many fasts I had done before I was able to, but I do remember my mental, like my mind process. I remember the first fast, I think like, okay, I'm going to try to do this thing. I don't know if I'm going to succeed, but I'm going to try, right? And so I was supposed to do the 3 days, no smoking during a fast. I think the first time I fasted, I think I did 24 hours. And then the second time I fast, I think I did a little bit longer. And then, each time I fast, I was able to quit for longer. And so I remember finally making it to the 3 days of no smoking. And then I remember, even in my mind, I was like, well, once my 3 days is up, I was back to smoking because I was only supposed to release for those 3 days, right? And so, so I ended up starting to do that. Like, whenever I would fast, I would not smoke. But whenever I wasn't fasting, I was indulging in my habits, right? And then, drinking and all the things, right? And so I remember after one fast being like, okay, since I was able to make it 3 days, I wonder if I could do 7. And so each time I fasted, each time I fasted, it's not that I got better and better, but I guess spiritually those chains were getting weaker and weaker. Because what ended up happening was, after a while, whenever I was fasting, those things that I used to indulge in that were supposed to be off limits, they were automatically off limits to the point where it was almost second nature. Like, it wasn't even in my mind like, oh, try not to smoke, try not to drink. Like, I wasn't fighting with those cravings. It was like, this time is for the Lord. I'm reading, I'm listening to worship music, I am watching Christian television shows or Christian movies. I had found a whole faith-based YouTube channel that played nothing but faith-based movies and all the things. And so it was just, after a while, it became, I just felt more free, right? And so anyway, I got to a point where after I was like, okay, if I could do 5 days, if I could make it 7 days. And then I think I got to a point where if I could make it 7 days, then I may not quit. And I'm not picking it up no more. Because at this point, I was thinking, if I can make it 7 days and I pick it up again, then I'm going to have to go through that whole craving and fiending and all of that all over again. So the fact that I was able to make it 7 days with no cravings, no fiending and nothing like that, I was like, I didn't want to pick it back up. So I did that, right? And then after the 7th day, I was like, okay, cool. I'm just keep it like this, like no smoking. But then I knew that in order to not smoke, that I can't drink and I can't smoke weed either. So I was like, not indulging in any of it. And I just remember 8 months had went by. And the reason why, 7 or 8 months. And the reason why I remember that is because I remember being at work one day. And I remember somebody asking me, and they was like, Tori, you smoke? And I was like, I used to. I'm like, I ain't smoked in 8 months. I'm so proud of myself. Like, I was so geeked. And then shortly after, something happened. I don't remember exactly what it was. I just remember being so frustrated, being so angry and so mad that I reached for one. And now, it's funny about these phases. I had a friend who was smoking and I asked to bum one. Now, that's what we call it. We call it you bum one from somebody because most smokers don't want to share their cigarettes. You get irritated when somebody always asking for a cigarette. So you call it a bum one. Because that's what bums do. No, sir. Anyway, so I'm thinking to myself, I'm gonna just smoke this one cigarette, relieve this little bit of so-called stress situation that's bothering me, and that's it. And lo and behold, shortly after, I start bumming one more frequently. To the point where I didn't want to be that one. I didn't want to be that one that every time I saw a certain somebody who I knew smoked, I was asking them for a cigarette. So right by the time I made it to bum one number 3, I was like, I might as well buy a pack. And so I bought a pack. I probably did a bum one a little more than that. Because whatever it was, it made me realize, like, okay, the cravings are back, right? So I remember kind of in that phase of beating myself up again. In that phase of, Lord, why am I doing something that I don't want to do? I had did so good. I had made it so long. I had went almost a full year not smoking cigarettes. And then all of a sudden something happened this one day, and I think it was because I've always wanted to be in control, right? Like I've always wanted to be able, like, have you ever seen someone who is like an occasional smoker, like someone who don't smoke every day, but they smoke every once in a while? Like I used to feel like, oh, I want to be like that. But that's because I also didn't know that life is spiritual. So I didn't know that even when it comes to the habits that we have and all of that stuff, that those are connected spiritually. I didn't know that at the time. It took for me to kind of go through the process that I've been through. I know that now, right? Is I guess what I'm getting at. And so, anyway, I remember thinking, like, it had been so long. I just thought smoking one cigarette just wasn't gonna hurt me. I just I'm not gonna be addicted again. Anyway, so long story short, I ended up picking up the habit again. And it took me another 6 months to release the habit. And the reason why I know is because for every time I bought a pack of cigarettes, I was kind of like, oh my gosh. Like, I was kind of upset. Like, I'm here again. Like, I was doing so good. I did all the things. And I think also, too, during this process, I didn't realize that it was the fasting that had weakened the stronghold for me to maintain or be able to. That revelation just came just now. Anyway, so it took me another 6 months because I didn't know that my quitting was the result of the fasting. And I remember kind of just being like, oh my God, kind of being frustrated with myself. Every time I went and bought another pack, every time I would try again, like I would try to be like, okay, I'm going to go a day or two without smoking. And sometimes I'll be able to go a day or two, maybe. But it was like, I was still doing it. Anyway, what made me realize the 6 month mark was, I don't know exactly. I think I did another fast. It may have been another fast. Even at the time, I still didn't realize that it was because of the fasting that I was able to release that, right? But anyway, I just remember that I was fighting myself. I was fighting my flesh. And I don't know. I think I did it again. I think the church called the corporate fast. And that's another thing. I never did a fast outside of whenever the church called one. If the church didn't say, hey, we're fasting this week, let's do a fast, I wasn't fasting because that wasn't my thing. Like, I didn't know how important it was. I was still new to all of this. I was like still freshly baptized and still becoming acquainted with God's word and all the things. And so the church called for another fast. That's when I did the fast. And again, it was like, okay, if I can make it through this 5-day fast without smoking, then I'm going to try to continue to, further or whatever. And so that's what ended up happening. And I made it to 6 months. And then after that 6 months, I did the fast. After the fast, I ended up quitting again. But this process was a process. And so I'm going to end it here but there's more. There's a lot more. I wish I could say that the process was easy, and I wish I could say that the process, like, by after self-discovery, I was in the learning phase. I was learning who I am, what my triggers are, and what makes me answers to these cravings, and what makes me feel like I need or desire these cravings and stuff like that. And so I'm gonna leave you with this. I'm gonna leave you with today's homework assignment is to read Romans chapter 7 and Romans chapter 8. That is it. Today's prayer points could be focused around asking the Lord to give us the strength to be able to complete the fast and to be able to step into alignment so that we can fulfill the desires that the Lord has for us, and to pretty much ask the Lord to put the desires that He has for you on your heart so that you are able to step into what He desires for your life. Tomorrow's topic is going to be self-control. Yeah, where I am now, Central Time, it is approaching 6 o'clock in like an hour. Yeah, it'll be 6 o'clock in like an hour. Anyway, by the time you guys get this, it's going to be already 6 o'clock. And yeah, until next time. Bye, y'all.